I think we should call this episode "The Left Doubles Down on Everything."
But I mean, more getting back to the point though, I think I was very concerned watching the feed, my Facebook feed and my Twitter feed when the Charlottesville stuff was going on, and people not understanding the implications to free speech. And this is actually kind of what I wanted to talk about with this whole topic before we went too far off the rails. I fully believe that free speech is the paramount issue on dealing with the left.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is we don't stand up to that. And free speech advocates like Amos and myself know that means the likes of Richard Spencer, Nazis, white supremacists, black supremacists, Holocaust deniers, like just the worst fathoms of humanity have a right to speak their mind.
Right.
And I think that is where these ideas should be exposed, challenged, and laughed at. So if Antifa had not showed up to the Charlottesville whole thing and caused the ruckus that they did, Richard Spencer and the few sprinkled Nazis and the alt-right, whatever, the whole thing would have gone off without a hitch. The media might have given it like a page 6 in the New York Times, buried, below some car advertisements, and nobody would have cared. But the fact that they're now opposing and they're giving attention to these groups and so forth, and there's the potential for the whole martyrdom syndrome where people now view the alt-right as some kind of victim. They're just making this whole thing worse. And as we were discussing before, I just want to get this point that when the left, well, not just the left, because the right does it too, but when groups shut down the marketplace of ideas for moderate speech, like where people could sit down and say, well, okay, well, here are the arguments for the white nationalist movement, and I could agree with some parts and maybe disagree with some parts and stuff like that, and not have to automatically be labeled as a Nazi and all these other things. If people are just allowed to have the conversations and debate the ideas without being shut down, in the realm of moderate conversation, a lot of this stuff would be hashed out. But because we've silenced, the left has tried to silence, the right has tried to we've silenced the discourse where we're not allowed to speak about anything, even remotely racial, political, elsewhere. Even as you yourself said, like, you did not put anything on your Facebook. I agree. I didn't do anything either because I knew it would just be a shitstorm. But because we can't have that rational dialogue anymore in the realms of moderate ideas, the only voice that is left are the extremists.
Mm-hmm.
The only voice that is brave enough to speak up and say what they have to say are going to be the extreme voices. And those are the ones, unfortunately, that are going to gather the momentum and they're going to gather the support because that's the only voice that's speaking.
Right.
That's what ends up happening. So for us, free speech is the key. And if it is that we don't stand up for that, I'm very disturbed that, like, I'm seeing this stuff go on YouTube, the censorship, the YouTube, these algorithms are coming up, they're demonetizing and like shadow banning and all this other kind of crap. But if we're not allowed to have those debates online in the realm of moderate, rational, everyday people, we empower the extremists. And I think that, above everything else, is the most dangerous thing the most dangerous lesson out of the Charlottesville.
Because we were actually talking about this. This is kind of repeating the conversation Brook and I had a few days ago, which was the fact that just imagine you kind of have these kind of using what's his name, Sam Harris's way of describing this when he talks about the concentric circles of sort of these people groups. You have the small circle. You have the KKK, neo-Nazi, white supremacists, the racists, the really, really hardcore. You've got maybe, I don't know, anywhere between a few thousand to maybe just above a couple tens of thousands of people. Maybe. Sure. I mean, I'm being really
I don't think it's that big. But yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
And then you have the other circle. You have the white nationalism. You have the people that possibly Richard Spencer's maybe on the inner side of that, but just wanting sort of this voluntary, non-violent sort of ethno-state. They believe in that. And then you have the concerned individuals. This is probably in a couple million. You have individuals now that have genuine concerns about the white race. They don't really know what to think. They're seeing just sort of this white culture. This sort of, I understand America's
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Definitely, America's a melting pot, and people intermarry. That's totally fine.
Sure.
But these are individuals that are seeing that you just don't have. They're seeing the statistics. They see the numbers. They're seeing the white man, the white individual, the Caucasian male, the Caucasian person is just going to be smaller and smaller minority. It's just going to be mixed and muddled away. Which I'm reiterating the fact that I'm totally fine with all this. People go marry and have kids, whoever they want, whatever. Concerned individuals in maybe the couple millions, and then you have the rest of us.
Right.
Now, anywhere between that outer circle and the white nationalists,
yeah,
the left wants to shut out all of them. And these are your everyday individuals that you will come in contact with that maybe want to have a conversation, but because of the way that society is having this narrative push that they're not allowed to talk about it, that they're literally equating them to that smaller circle in the middle.
Yeah, correct.
Where they completely shut them out, and all that's left is these guys who are literally balls to the walls, don't give a fuck what you think. They're just gonna spew the toxicity to the max. They're gonna pull in all of this into there.
Correct.
Now instead of having maybe a few thousand, maybe 10,000 white supremacist KKK neo-Nazi people, it starts moving up into the hundreds of thousands, maybe even to the million. This is the worst case scenario, obviously, where free speech is essentially maybe not legally shut out. First Amendment stays in place, the whole thing, but in society, in sort of the de facto part of the de facto thing in society is you just don't talk.
The consciousness of society, yeah.
The consciousness of society will essentially shut out all of this to the point that you instead of having just like I said, a few thousand white supremacists, now you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of them.